Screen. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? None. Public hearings, none. Delegations, none. Question period concerning the agenda. Okay, go ahead.
Moving into part one of the consent agenda, moved by Councillor Ron Dubussy, second by Councillor Ray Dufour. Be it resolved that items A1 to F5 inclusive, contained in part one consent agenda, be adopted.
Okay, under the A section, are there any questions or comments? In the B section, are there any questions or comments? Matters arising from the in-camera session, there are none. Business arising from board and committees, none. Bylaws and resolutions, the following bylaws will be read and passed. Under the E section, any questions or comments? Under the F section, any questions or comments? Yes.
Just a comment and kudos to whoever asked the Carter Kings to come back. We heard earlier they weren't going to be asked back, and I see they are for the festival. And free of charge, it says. And it was a great promotion to bring people in.
Right on, thank you. Anyone else? None. Be it resolved, A1 to F5 includes contained in part 1 consent agenda be adopted. All in favor? Carried.
Part two, the regular agenda, item G1, moved by Councillor Ron Dubussy, second by Councillor Ray Dufour. Be it resolved that bylaw 2845/18 be adopted, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of all sums required during the year and to strike the rates of taxation for the year 2018.
Questions or comments? Ron?
I don't know if it was at the last meeting, one meeting recently about budgets, and we looked at the money we had taken out of reserves to put aside for the fire hall. I thought we were looking at increasing that to make sure that we didn't fall short. Once the proposals come in, should we decide to move forward and end up towards the end of the term and we'll end up that we would have enough money in reserves set aside for that. I see we still at the 1.25 million, I believe, and I don't think we're going to see anything come in that low. I mean, it would be nice, but I doubt it. I guess I'll address it more to Bill because he's the chair on the budget.
Well, I'll pass it by our CAO there.
Yeah.
No, Bill could probably speak to that.
Okay.
That's an estimate of what we might spend this year, because likely, even if we get started into a fire hall, it would likely get carried over. I guess the question I have of Cynthia is that if we end up passing we passed a budget on this, we're going to have an estimate on the cost there, but by locking this into the budget, are we going to have to come back and ask for some more money after July 27th, or we've allocated some funding? We know it's not the total amount because some of it's going to go into next year. We've just passed a budget for this year. So that's fair to say we're relatively safe?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we could move the full amount to this year. It's all funded from reserves anyway, so it's not going to have an impact to the levy.
And that's something we could change today?
That's what I would like to do if we could, Your Worship. I'd like to put at least another $500,000 across. It doesn't change the tax rates or anything else. It's our own money. We're just shifting it from one area to another to make sure we have money to proceed. I know we probably shouldn't have problems because it'll carry over to next year, but shouldn't unexpected things happen, and we do, and I would like to make sure we have money there so we can proceed when proposals come in.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Maybe we move $500,000 over.
If that's a consensus with everybody?
Should amend it.
So we should have what I'll do is I'll write up an additional resolution because we should have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The same thing applies to the
police.
policing, but a lot of that is tied in by, locked in by contract, so I think we're protected that way.
And that's all in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see the number was quite large there.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it is. That was gonna be my next question.
Well, the biggest area of uncertainty in that area is who will go move to the OPP. And
Well, we don't know.
know
That's the
that.
thing.
But that's all locked in by contract,
Mhm.
and what we pass there now covers that.
Okay, as long as that's covered, I have no
And
problem.
we don't have to come back even for the work that goes into 2 buildings there, right?
Well, probably the tender amount will be high enough that it'll come back to be awarded, but the amount's all in the budget. So.
Okay, so if it's a little different, it doesn't matter. Okay.
So this is just the additional 500,000.
Who's this one? You need to move it, or you want me to move it? Or something.
Okay, so I guess we'll do this resolution first and then the one that was already read out. So moved by Councillor Ray Dufour, second by Councillor Ron Dupussy, be resolved that an additional $500,000 be moved from reserves in 2018 for the new fire hall.
All in favor? Carried.
So that still stands. So.
Bylaw number 2845/18 be adopted, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of all sums required during the year and to strike the rates of taxation for the year 2018. Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Should we actually vote on G1?
Yes.
Just now.
Okay. Okay, sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing.
Okay, item G2 is moved by Councillor Heather Malott, second by Councillor Ken Dupussy. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2846/18 be adopted, being a bylaw to establish tax ratios for prescribed property classes.
Questions or comments?
From what I saw, it looks like it's gonna be virtually the same as last year.
It's pretty close to the same as last year, yeah, and that's just the proportion between what gets allocated to residential or multi-residential, commercial, and industrial.
I think the only one we usually vary is industrial, commercial, a little bit, and then it reflects on the others.
Yeah, well, it's the residential rate you set, and then the other ones are sort of factors of that, so.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Item G3, moved by Councillor Ken Dupussy, second by Councillor Heather Malott. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2847/18 be adopted, being a bylaw to adopt optional tools for the purposes of administering limits for eligible properties within the meaning of Section 331, new construction for the commercial, industrial, and multi-residential property classes.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Item G4, moved by Councillor Ken Dupussy, second by Councillor Bill Foster. Be it resolved that bylaw 2848/18 be adopted, being a bylaw to establish capping options for prescribed property classes.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Item G5, moved by Councillor Heather Malott, second by Councillor Ken Dupussy. Be it resolved that bylaw 2849/18 be adopted, being a bylaw to stop up and close and realign a portion of Church Street.
Questions or comments?
The plans on that I looked at haven't changed from the original plans. They're exactly the same, what we had agreed to 2 years or so back. Okay.
Is all of Church Street being,
Yeah, we'll have a new entrance.
is all,
Probably speak to that the next.
Yeah, no, so the Church Street will be realigned to come off of Hague Street,
okay,
and then it'll curve around. And
so a portion of it will still be that,
that's right, a portion of it will still be open.
okay.
I think it's going to realign, if I'm not mistaken, Paula, where the two houses are
That's right.
removed,
Yes,
and it will go out the other way to that lane kind of
Yeah.
street.
Yeah,
To the street or to Brennan?
to Brennan, so that's where it goes. The portion where the home, there's two houses there,
Yes. Yeah.
so that portion will stay the same. It'll just
Right.
come from Hague instead of coming from Mead.
Right, and then Mead will be closed off, right?
no, not
To
me,
Mead is not going to.
No, I'm saying Mead, I'm talking about the access to.
That's right,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
yes.
Yes, because that'll all become part of the school property.
The parking and everything, yes. Okay, thanks.
All in favor? Carried.
Okay, agenda item G6, moved by Councillor Bill Foster, second by Councillor Ron Dupuis. Be resolved that whereas the Parliament of Canada wishes to increase awareness among Canadians of the sufficient benefits of physical activity and to encourage Canadians to increase their level of physical activity and their participation in recreational sports and fitness activities. Whereas it is in Canada's interest to improve the health of all Canadians and to reduce the burden of illness on Canadian families and on the Canadian healthcare system. Whereas many local governments in Canada have public facilities to promote the health and fitness of their citizens. Whereas the Government of Canada wishes to encourage local governments to facilitate Canadians' participation in healthy physical activities. And whereas the Government of Canada wishes to encourage the country's local governments, non-government organizations, the private sector, and all Canadians to recognize the first Saturday in June as National Health and Fitness Day, and to mark the day with local events and initiatives celebrating and promoting the importance and use of local health, recreational, sports, and fitness facilities. Whereas Canadians, mountain, ocean, lake, forest, parks, and wilderness also offer recreational and fitness opportunities. And whereas Canadian Environment Week is observed throughout the country in early June, and walking and cycling are great ways to reduce vehicle pollution and improve physical fitness. And whereas declaring the first Saturday in June to be National Health and Fitness Day will further encourage Canadians to participate in physical activities and contribute to their own health and well-being. Therefore, Council thereby proclaims National Health and Fitness Day in the town of Espanola as the first Saturday in June, and furthermore encourages all residents to explore the recreational activities in our community, has to offer and cordially invite you to the Tennis and Tea Celebration on Sunday, June 3rd at the tennis courts from 2 to 4 to enjoy free tennis and pickleball lessons and be witness to the unveiling of the memorial shade benches donated by Miss Daphne Allen in memory of her husband Don and Sunday.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Agenda item G7, moved by Councillor Ron Dupuis, second by Councillor Bill Foster. Be it resolved that Council for the Town of Espanola supports the Municipality of East Ferris' resolution 2018-165 regarding the right to approve landfill projects in their communities.
We don't have that right now.
Who's going to speak to that?
This has come up because a number of communities have been concerned, more in southern Ontario, that cities like Toronto or Hamilton or Ottawa, right now a community doesn't have the ability to stop a landfill project from a major center. They have no say in it. And a number of communities are concerned about this, so that Toronto isn't going to work some deal with a private landowner in your community, and you have no say in the process.
Any other questions, Ron?
Not a question, yours, just to follow up to Bill. I fully agree that, communities should have the right, but that's probably also opening up problems. Everybody wants a landfill, but nobody wants it in their community. They want it in the neighbors. But I still think that people should have the right, they want it here, I know. But the thing is, nobody wants it in their community, they want it someplace else. And this is gonna create another problem, I'm sure. But I do think communities should have some say in the process.
Right. All in favor? Carried.
Agenda item G8, moved by Councillor Bill Foster, seconded by Councillor Ron Dupussy. Be resolved that Council for the Town of Espanol supports the Save ABL's committee commissioning a feasibility study. The study should include a building condition assessment for the old ABL school and considerations as they relate to change of use for the proposed development.
Questions or comments? Councillor Bill.
We sat down with a couple of people from that group there. I think Ron and I were at that meeting.
Yeah.
And they're not asking that we provide any financial support for a project, but they need something from the community that says they would support an alternate end use, okay, if it was economically feasible, meaning that we would have to kick in money, it would have to support itself. They would like to go out and get some grants so they could do a feasibility study to show that it's a financially feasible project.
Go ahead, Ron.
Oh, sorry. No, and I read your report that came out from the two of you attending, and I certainly support this group. If they're out there looking for these things, I told them at the original meetings I was at, I think a couple of them back at the United Church in the very beginning, I don't think I want to support it as a thing that would be a burden to taxpayers, but certainly worse than well, if they can find developers or anybody to take this on and move ahead, it would be nothing better than for the community.
I agree. Councillor Ray.
I was just wondering if there was a time limit applied to this. Is there
A time?
Yeah, like a time limit. Like I read it and I didn't see there was any time problems, eh? Like there's no time
Maybe
problem.
we could ask Mr. Clackett, is there some portion of time allotted for this?
Well, excuse me, this is the first step in the whole process. Obviously, the school is being used right now. It isn't surplus. When the school becomes surplus, the board still has a motion to demolish that school. So it's important that we get the feasibility study done as soon as possible to show that there are other uses for that school. Yes, it's
So it is
urgent that
time
we move
sensitive.
ahead as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the grants and whatnot.
No, I mean, the grants are, there's not one particular grant we're looking for right now. We're still looking at different agencies who provide grants for this type of study. So once we pick one, then certainly
Okay.
there may be timelines that they impose which are going to affect us.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Bill, did you have a comment?
Yeah, if the feasibility study is going on and they've got a grant to do that and the new school is up and open, council has the ability to pass a motion to delay that in some form that we can put it on hold. I think we have some ability to do that.
Well, I don't know.
I thought there was, communities
Be
could,
considered a historic site.
I don't think we can interfere.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
if let's say we wanted that cool, let's say they're into a feasibility study and I'll just use an example. In 2020, the school opens up in September and the feasibility study isn't going to be till October or November of that year. Do we have the ability as a town council to pass a motion to delay that part of it?
Not that I'm aware of. Not at this point, no.
Okay, I thought there was something in the books that allowed communities to,
If you have if there is a heritage committee
Okay.
that's established by council and it's been, declared as a heritage site, that's a whole new
Oh.
ballgame, but that is, I think, what you're thinking.
okay, that's probably what it is.
Councillor Ron?
And I was just going to go back to the time constraints that these people may have, and I don't think it's with us. It's going to be with Rainbow School Board, should they declare it as building surplus after
Yeah.
the new one's in place.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have a motion on the floor that we've given approval. I don't think we can move that motion. against the school board. It was passed in open council,
no.
so.
I was
I
thinking
think their
about
constraints are
historical.
gonna be with the board.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the historical buildings. There was something that communities could put a hold on these things for
Then you
a
got
year or
a hold of the
18
other
months, yeah. Anyway, it's, okay.
Councillor Heather.
So do we have a historical building committee now?
No.
No, council
Should we
has
look
not
into
established.
that so that we can at least give them something to fall back on if they need this?
Councillor Ron.
I'm just concerned if we make it a historical building and their feasibility study does not pan out, that they can get anyone to do it. Now you've created a historical building that you can't tear down.
No, but that's just saving, from what I understand, what you're doing is just placing it under that umbrella, but you don't own that property.
Well, but nobody can do anything with it then, under that designation, other than saving it and doing something. And if there's no...
But if you
All we're
don't,
doing here is, okay.
No, oh no, we're not, that, she's talking about something completely different.
Oh,
I
sorry.
just needed to know the venue on that.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do?
It belongs to the Rainbow School.
Yes,
Yeah.
School
exactly.
Board, so I mean, we can't usurp that authority, they own it.
Right, that's all I wanted to know, is what was the process involved in setting up a committee that would umbrella that building?
Not until Rainbow releases that
Okay.
to SABE,
Okay.
to my knowledge anyway. All in favor? Carried.
Item G9, moved by Councillor Ron Dupussy, second by Councillor Bill Foster. Be it resolved that council approve the purchase of new SCBA's for the fire department as quoted by Public Safety.
Questions or comments?
Should have put that as the last item, your worship, would have kept the crew longer.
Any questions or comments about the motion that was read? All in favor? Carried.
Okay, item G10 is a resolution, or is a staff report for discussion and direction of the board, basically. I think everybody's got the staff.
We read it. I wasn't sure exactly what you were looking for from it.
Okay, so what we're looking for is what the basic status quo, or what has been the norm in the past, is that when we lease property, we only have 2 other properties that we lease for sign purposes, which is Clearly Inn has a sign and Trailside Sports has a sign on our property, and those have been there for years. But we've never advertised on our property for businesses outside of town. We've kept it locally because we promote local. And so this business is looking to advertise for a business outside of Westmore. That's basically what the discussion is.
Councillor Ron.
I guess what I have a problem with is, yes, I know it's municipal land and we don't have a lot of it available for advertising, but someone has come along and offered to lease it from us for advertising, and if we don't allow other people to lease our property, then we allow it to sit vacant and hoping somebody else comes along.
We don't promote the leasing on our property.
No,
It's as
but I mean, it's
people
been an
come.
option. And I'm for business enterprise. If somebody wants to lease our property and we have it, and it's not hurting us, then I'm for it.
Well, there was a sign there previously, was there not, Rick?
Yeah,
Not on our property.
no. Yeah, it's on our private property.
Okay.
We're asking to move that exact sign off of private property and onto municipal property, so we pay the town. It's the last sign available leaving, excuse me, I should be standing, I apologize. It's the last sign available leaving the town, so, and headed toward Manitoulin Island. So the people who are already in town, shopping and going to the complex and whatnot, are done with their business in town. And it's just a reminder on their way home that, hey, here's another option for you. So I don't believe, or we, pardon me, don't believe that it's going to interfere with any businesses in town, and we would just prefer to pay the town to rent the property than where we are. So that's basically my request.
Three businesses would benefit. One on one side, one on the other, and of course us.
Yeah. And the one coming into town is a local business. We're working with another local business to advertise on that side. Thank you.
I don't see a problem in changing that bylaw, but Councillor Bill.
I think Bill is.
I would just suggest we just move that for their next corporate services meeting, and we discuss that, because
May
we're
I
talking
speak
town
on that,
policy.
please?
Pardon?
Sorry, may I speak on that, please?
Yes.
Thank you. It was supposed to go to the last corporate services meeting, but apparently there wasn't a quorum to have a meeting. Community, pardon me.
Okay.
And so we've been working with the customer for a month and a half, and now we are now under a time restraint because we will have to renew our lease with the private landowner, and we would prefer to just go ahead with the town. So that's the only problem I have with that. Thank you.
Councillor Bill, proceed.
Yeah, I'm all right with that, as long as we refer that, we can approve this particular thing and review the policy for future course, so we haven't opened the doors if we think that that's an issue, and have a floodgate of others. Okay, I don't think that'll be an issue, but at least it.
Okay, I'll just, this is the resolution, if you can move it. Thank you. Okay, moved by Councillor Bill Foster, second by Councillor Ken Dupuy. Be it resolved that council approve OK Signs advertising for a business outside of Escalona on municipal property.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Item G11, moved by Councillor Bill Foster, second by Councillor Ken Dupuy. Be it resolved that council award the tender for the Connecting Link project to Larson Pipe.
Questions or comments? Councillor Ron.
I think we have Joel here. I don't know if you want to answer your worship. I'd like to know the complete scope. I imagine we've cambered all this storm sewers, water. Do they all have to be changed? I presume we're doing the road, we're looking at 20 years anyway.
Yeah, the water line is going to be replaced. It's asbestos cement pipe. Yeah, we're looking at going to PVC. Storm sewers have been cambered, and sections of the storm sewer and sanitary will be upgraded or replaced.
With the, how far are we going? I know we're taking the road surface, so the curbs. What about the sidewalks or whatever? Is that all part of it?
Yes.
Okay, and so I seen the total, and I noticed we're going to station, that the actual, I think the old phase done 20 years or whatever back, went up to grade almost. And because I looked at that portion, I went out and looked at it from grade to station. It's one of those areas where you're putting a lot of pothole patching in, but I guess we can't go that far.
That is, well,
we don't have the money for that far.
The funding model for the Connecting Link is based on $3 billion projects. And that's the challenge that we're faced with right now, to maximize funding. We could always do more, but then the municipality pays more.
No, I realize that. But, okay, and I know we're paying more, but I guess I was looking at the section where I'm in right there, especially in the spring. As this warm weather comes out now and it dries, we get far less of that pothole with the potholes. But what if we did like a little shave and pave in that one lane? I know it's not a solution for the long term, but would it be a solution until we got some funding?
Council can elect to...
No, but I guess I'd like to see something come from you, Joel. I know it's going to be a cost plus to the municipality, but is there a savings in the long run?
Not at this point. Shave and pave is traditionally done when your asphalt surfaces is starting to depreciate. In many cases, but the asphalt is done, so you're not really saving any.
No, I just wanted to hook that one layer on that one lane, on that one side, if it would help alleviate the problem until we got grants to be able to do that section properly. I don't know if it's something maybe you could bring back to community services.
Councillor Bill.
That just does one section, okay? Does the sewer and water lines and the road base have to be changed all the way through, or?
Well,
I'm not talking about this particular section, but the additional sections that are gonna have to be done in the next few years.
I can't say off the top of my head, but we're only focused on this one
Okay.
section right now. We have done the camera work.
So we did everything then, eh? The camera work?
So like from Second Avenue to the highway, the sewers cross the highway, so
Yeah.
it's not.
Sure.
The last coat of pavement is going on in the following year,
Yes.
and why is that? Because they won't have the time frame, or
No, it's
is it customary?
there's two schools of thought, and some of it is getting it all done in 1 year. The other school of thought is when you're disturbing the soil, you may get some settling, and then what happens is you're able to do any of the repairs. For example, if, let's say catch basins haven't been packed properly, you'll get some sinking, as
Yes.
opposed to cutting your top coat of asphalt and opening that up. Because any cut in the asphalt makes it more susceptible to water, and water is the enemy in the freeze-thaw cycle, which.
And then it'll give them the opportunity to correct any faults that arise through the winter months.
Yeah, we're better able to deal with deficiencies and with
Okay.
regard to packing and that, and then we'll top coat it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ron.
I much prefer this method. And even if I had my druthers, I'd probably leave it gravel for 1 year to get all the compaction you could, because that's where you run into problems.
That would be a maintenance nightmare.
I know it would be for maintenance, but it would be great for compaction, so when you got your asphalt on, it would be better. You're right.
Okay, all in favor of this motion? Carried.
Item G12, moved by Councillor Heather Malott, second by Councillor Bill Foster. Be resolved that bylaw 2850/18 be adopted, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 1321/98, authorizing vacant unit rebates.
Questions or comments?
I know we had dealt with this some time back. I guess this is just the formality part now?
Yeah, we had done that last year. We're
Yeah,
going
did
to
we do
phase
it?
it out.
Oh,
Yeah, so last year was done by special regulation of the province. And so this is just to repeal the old 1998 bylaw.
okay.
And now we're done with the vacant rebates.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
Your worship.
Correspondence for information.
Your worship. At
Yes.
this point, while we're still in that section, I'd like to introduce a notice of motion. I know it's coming up to one of our committees about the building permits and all the rest, but the construction season is here. Before it comes up to these committees and reviewed and whatever, some of these things, it'll be too late to do anything this year. And I'd like to have one that we do not use this year, and that's the siding.
The which?
Siding. second that.
So, Councillor Dupuy, do you want this
I
read
guess-
and then you want it
yes,
passed tonight? You don't
yeah.
want it to go to committee?
And no, I'd like it read as a notice of motion, and then we could possibly bring it up as a motion.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Ron Dupuy, second by Councillor Ray Dufour. We have a notice of motion. Be resolved that we remove the need for a permit to remove or replace siding as long as there are no structural changes. So there's no discussion, they just have to vote
No discussion. Just
on this.
Okay, all in favor? Carried.
I'll use that back because we don't know the motion links. Just put it on the next page.
Sorry.
That's okay, no. I'll give Chad a second and then I'll just put it over here.
Sure,
as long
thank
as
you.
it's- Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion moved by Councillor Ron Dupuy, seconded by Councillor Ray Dufour. Be resolved that we remove the need for a permit to remove or replace siding as long as there are no structural changes. And we can have discussion. We can have discussion.
Comments or questions? Councillor Ron?
I noticed, Your Worship, when I put in that notice of motion, you mentioned that somebody wanted to side their house. If you're aware of
I
that.
mentioned?
Yes, you did, just a moment ago, Your Worship, when I handed in the notice of motion and you read it. You mentioned it out loud enough, and I think everyone heard that you thought somebody must want to side their house. And there may be, but I'm not aware of any. If you are, you're privileged. I'm not. I know we have brought this up a few weeks ago that we would bring it to committee, but I see with the construction season upon us, by the time it goes to committee, comes back to council, a bylaw is written, the season will be over. Well, I'm not aware of anybody wanting to do it, but I am aware that there are very few municipalities that charge building permits for installing siding. And I don't know why we as a municipality are hindering people with building permit after building permit. And that's the why I am putting this in at this time. And I think we're going to review a few other items, if I'm not mistaken, at one of the committees. And we'll make changes if they're appropriate at that time. But for now, I'm giving council the opportunity to vote on one item only.
By the way, I don't know anybody
Well, I didn't say
siding
you
their
did,
house.
but you were the one
So,
who said
no, don't point at me.
You said it, Your Worship, right there. You said someone
I
must
don't
side
know
their house.
anybody, I don't know anybody that wants to side their
I
house.
didn't say you did, I said you might, but you were the one that said it, Your Worship. Not me.
All right, any other comment? Bill?
On the face of that, that looks like a reasonable thing there, but I'd like to at least hear some input from, do a little bit of homework, okay,
Yes.
myself, and hear a little bit from our building trades so we know some issues with, potential issues with liability or not, and at least a viewpoint of our building inspector. We will have a corporate services meeting probably early
Next week.
early next
June 5th.
June 5th,
I think
or
that
our
goes
next
to
council
committee
meet, our
service.
next council meeting after that will be not too long after that. I think we can afford to wait
That doesn't go to corporate, it goes to community.
okay, communities, okay, which, whatever, okay? And, or if we don't bring it to community, we can bring it to the next council meeting, get a report from the building inspector and give the rest of us a little chance to take a look at that.
Councillor Ron.
We can do that, your worship, but it only delays it that much longer as we're into the construction season. We can choose to pass this, still bring it to community services, get recommendations, and if we find out it's bad, we can reverse it. We've certainly done that on other permits in the past.
But that means that people will start ahead of
Well, the ones started and the ones that...
no.
Yeah.
Councillor Ken.
That part does cause confusion if we reverse it.
I read that.
So I assume this isn't in the Ontario Building Code? It's a municipal.
Well, that's what we need to find out.
Well, I assume it would be illegal motion if it was. So I assume you know that. There are a number of issues we talked about with our municipal lawyer in Camera a few weeks ago, and that was one of them. There are other things we have to look at because we have to be careful what we do if we permit above the Ontario Building Code because the town could be potentially liable.
Yes.
So it's an issue, I agree with Bill, it's an issue we should look at in a little more depth.
Yeah.
Because we might be doing one part of it, but there may be a number of other parts that we shouldn't be permitting either.
Exactly.
All right.
Anyone else?
So what I like to do is see us defer it to at least the next council meeting, okay? Rather than vote on it right now. Have to vote on it right now.
Would a policy change not go to corporate? Or is it
Policy changes, yes.
Would that be a policy change?
Yeah.
Or
Because it's a bylaw that would have to be changed.
that we could deal with it corporate next week, June the 5th? Or
Yeah.
June the 5th is corporate.
And that's still in time for the next
We're
council
gonna bring
meeting.
it to the community services, because building comes under community services.
No.
It does, but policy change, bylaw change.
Are you gonna change the policy before you get the community services input?
No, I wouldn't think that'd be proper. I don't know if we don't have a bylaw anyway, do we, on?
Yeah, we do. That, we have a bylaw that includes siding. So what would happen is the building department would do a staff report for corporate next week, and if there's a recommendation there and corporate endorsed it or passed it, then it would go to council the following week.
So we're talking about delaying it for a couple of weeks.
I think that's appropriate. Councillor Ron.
I don't believe it is affecting the Ontario Building Code because other municipalities aren't doing it. Only, not only Espanola, but Espanola is one of a few.
We're not other municipalities.
That's true,
No.
but he asked if it was under the Ontario Building Code. If it was, every municipality would do it.
I would prefer to check it out.
You might, yes.
Councillor Ray.
I agree with both sides, but I do have one problem. I'm like Councillor Ken Duplessis. I didn't see it in our bylaws. Would there be any way you could send that to me?
Well, it's the building fees bylaw. Most
building
likely has
fees.
the siding. I don't know.
Oh, you don't know for sure
If it's in
then?
our bylaws, that's where it is.
Oh, okay, because I get confused with the bylaws and then the actual government regulations.
Without having the chief building official here, I'm not sure what is in there and what isn't.
Yeah.
Councillor Ron Duplessis is correct in saying that at least as far as I know, that it's not in the building code. And I did a lot of reading in there, but I certainly don't see it in there. I could have missed it, but I've done a lot of reading, like I said, and I don't see it. However, if we are circumventing any of the building regulations, we certainly want to know about it quickly so we can rescind anything that we might have done improper. And I think that can be simply done with the building inspector showing up at the corporate meeting and having it said right there. There's no reason why we can't pass that today and rescind it next week.
I have a problem with circumventing proper procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want the siting issues to start opening the doors because sometimes you're changing siding, and then all of a sudden you've got to change a window because it's rotten on the bottom or whatever. And now you're doing structural work.
Then you get a permit.
And I disagree with that. I think we should, as Bill suggested, we should follow the proper procedures. Even though it's going to take some time, I want to do it right. Councillor Bill.
Well, yeah, go ahead there.
Yes.
You had a question?
Yeah, yes, Your Worship. It's not council's position, nor is it the building codes or the building official's position to babysit people. If they see that they got a structural problem, they have to come back here, pick up a permit and get it done. We don't babysit these things. This happens on its own through me, you, and anybody that's doing the job.
I'd still want to see it done in proper sequence.
Well, that is
before
proper
it's-
sequence, though.
Before it's put out there. I don't want to have people changing siding in the next 2 weeks when we haven't followed the proper procedures. Councillor Bill.
So,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. So let's just imagine now that the procedure is we don't have to get a permit for building or for putting siding on. We've been charging people all along to do that. Are we following proper procedure?
All I want to do is make sure that we are in the building code and that we're following proper procedures. And I don't want to keep discussing this. I think that the rule of thumb is that we should wait and do this properly, not advance this part of it and then catch up to it later. Councillor Bill.
I just from a general process, okay? If we start introducing motions and making decisions without having time to think about it and get some input from staff, okay, and other information sources, I think generally, and we have passed a few motions along the way there, but I think that should be something we should try to stay away from so we don't make decisions quickly without having a little bit more thought about it. You may have thought about this quite a bit, but some of us may not have. So I think it's just good general policy, regardless of this decision in itself.
Councillor Ron.
Just further to that, Councillor Bill, we did bring the building inspector in to a community service meeting probably 2 years ago. And one of the reasoning behind getting permits was so they could look at the structure underneath and see if there was any structural work needed. And that's why I made sure in my motion, I said if there was any structural work needed, then there would be a permit required. If it's simply the removal and replacement of siding, because we all know some places have old color lock and vinyl and it's broken up from whatever reason, and they just want to replace it. They're not changing the structure, the siding is deteriorated. And it's not very aesthetic any longer.
But if the siding installer is in a hurry to get the siding on and decides to change the door frame without telling anybody,
But
now what have you got?
That can happen anytime, Your Worship. People can go ahead and try changing their door frames.
Right now we can change doors and the frames, windows.
I'm talking about the structural portion of it where it's bad.
I understand.
On the framing.
Right, but right now we allow this with windows and doors,
I know.
as long as they're of the same size, right? So that's all he's saying. He's just like, we're doing it now.
Yeah, I understand.
And he did mention if there's structural defect, it's the homeowner to come in and say, look, I need a permit, or I need you to check this for me and tell me if I need a permit.
I understand. I just want to make sure that council is going in the right direction here and that there won't be no kickbacks afterwards. I don't want that. Councillor Ken.
In terms of the structure, it is proper to do this. You can't do this no motion, but I would like to have what's called due diligence.
Yes.
I would like to, because it's more than just citing. There's a number of things, and we talked about that could put us in a liable position, and we should be looking at in the whole. I'm not necessarily one of the problems Ron has is going to drag on through the summer, but this has been dragging on since this council started. And there's been a lot of problems in the building department from, theoretically from the citizens saying it's a part of his lack of education, part of it on our part is lack of education of that. But I still would like to perhaps get a staff report. We can still disagree with it if it violates the, or if it's against the Ontario Building Code and we don't want to permit it here, we don't have to. Thank you.
So, first, I'll vote to see if they want to defer. If they don't want to defer, then what would we support?
Okay, we'll have a vote to see if you want to do this
Want to defer it.
or defer it. Or
So
defer
you
it?
either vote to defer it, defeat
Need
it,
to
or
vote.
carry it.
Is there a vote to defer this?
What's the motion? Is it just to bypass siding? Siding.
The need for a permit to remove or replace siding as long as there are no structural changes. Can we defer it?
Or do you need an amendment to the motion?
Well, that's the thing, you can vote, why I suggested deferring it. If you don't defer it, then you can reread the motion, and it's either carried or defeated. If it's defeated, it dies at the table. So that's why I suggested vote on whether to defer it or not. If council doesn't agree to defer it, then you can have another motion to vote to carry or defeat it.
Because of the complexity of...
No, just a point of information. You said if it defeated, dies on the table?
That's right.
It can't be brought up again?
Well, you can do a reconsideration
Yeah, okay.
motion at a
Yeah.
later date. Sorry, I
Or
just meant
brought-
that this motion is
Yes.
dead.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can I make a motion to defer it?
Well, so yeah, ask, just don't say all in favor of deferring.
All in favor of deferring?
Okay, so now, that's one motion. I
That's a
don't have
no.
a piece of paper
It's a no,
here, so I
yeah.
have to rewrite it, but, so now I say all in favor, period. So if everybody's in favor of it,
But
then
it's
it
not-
carries. Well, whatever the result is, it either gets carried or
no danger.
deferred. So everybody's heard, just like, everybody's heard the motion. All in favor. Can go for that.
So, all in favor of deferring it?
No, you
No,
already
we
No.
Just say all in favor, and see how many people support this.
Okay. To those who support this, how many are in favor?
Okay. Very good.
Ken, are you voting both ways?
Well,
This is
it's
a-
two
this is
different
a totally
motions, different motion.
separate motion.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The council didn't want, so it's, I'll vote in favor.
So it carries.
It
So
carries.
carried, and that's fine.
All right. That was
You confused me.
uphill.
Okay, now move on.
Now we can move on. Conference and conventions, there were none. Letter from a local resident regarding OPP. Township of Marion Hyman correspondence regarding Highway 17 reclassification. Mayor and councilor reports and announcements. Councilor Ray.
I have nothing, Your Worship.
Councilor Ron.
Two items, Your Worship. One, it's sad to see that, and I probably do it definitely, even though we've opened that place at the bottom of the ski hill or on the outside for brush or whatever, I've still seen a couple of locations where people drive out there and they're dumping it on the sides of roads. And it's so sad because it's a real nice place and I know many, many people are so pleased with it. The second thing was, about a week and a half ago, I was out at the coffee shop, which I am every morning. And I had a local resident come up and tell me about a letter he found on his door while the local fire department was doing their home inspections. I guess he wasn't home, so they left him a letter. I'm sure we've all seen the letter by now. I had another one later that morning come and tell me that they had seen it, and they were a little disturbed that our firemen, and I know they really feel for their cause, Your Worship, and I sympathize with them. We as a council have to make a decision, and it may not always be what other people want. and various departments. But these two individuals that came to see me once they received this letter were a little upset because of the fact that they thought fire department were starting to play politics now and trying to turn people in the community against us. They made the point that they moved out there some years back before we even were a part of Espanola. And there was absolutely no fire protection whatsoever, and I lived in that same situation. And once the town amalgamated Merritt Township, of course, we got a fire protection to a degree, which helped the rates. I talked to my insurance company to see if this would influence my rates. Absolutely not. Nothing. As far as them asking the residents to contact us, I can say that I have not had one call that people are concerned. They're the only two individuals that came to me said, make the best decision based on the taxpayers' cost. And that's what I think we've already decided as a council we were looking at doing. That's all I have, Your Worship.
Councillor Heather.
I'm good.
Councillor Ken.
No, thanks, Your Honor.
Councillor Bill.
With amalgamation with the OPP, I'm just wondering if we need a motion for an actual motion to say we want to keep the 5-person police services board, or is that going to be an automatic?
I'll have to look into that more.
Yeah, because we're going to go to the Ontario Civilian Police Commission there with our application pretty soon, and I sort of thought we might need a note from council from that. Secondly, on the fire end of it there, I would like to see a little report from the police taking a scenario of a fire that's out in the country and outlining what would happen with what we're doing there now and what it means in water with the third pumper tanker. We're going to get some sort of estimate of what it costs for the additional bay. We should have some factual, at best we can, some factual report showing what it means if you were fighting the fire. How many gallons a minute would you be able to put? How would it change the volume of water you can put on a building to fight a fire, and whether or not those met the threshold for insurance rates? I think for a pumper certification of a relay, I can't remember the exact term. You need 100 gallons a minute, but insurance requires 200 gallons a minute of steady flow to a house for any improvements in insurance. You'd be kind of curious as to what that would do it if we were fighting a fire near the outer limits of the town and maybe halfway in there, where just to look at the logistics of doing that and what we can actually apply to a fire. And that would might be useful information for us. And you might even take a scenario in town where you're fighting a fire, and what would the third pumper tanker do for a fire in the mall or something like that. I don't know if that would change anything, but just so we have some realistic estimate of what the actual impact change would be of that.
I think Mark Liliev's presentation from past council meeting addresses some of that.
He's made
very well.
He's made some statements, but we need to back him up with some
facts.
Okay.
I think
you were pretty factual.
I agree with Councillor Foster. It never hurts to have more information, but I think you want it from the fire department. You mentioned from the police.
Yeah, from the fire department.
OPP on your mind.
No, yeah, from the fire department.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, and you could turn around and say, look, if you were at a location halfway down or down Lee Valley Road, or down Lee Valley Road near the end there, and you had 3 pumper tankers versus 2, what does it mean? Right now, we rely on Baldwin to come in with a pumper tanker, and that takes a certain amount of time. Exactly what would the logistics look like, okay, and once you empty your tank, it takes a while to go back and drive back to a fire hydrant, more time to fill it up, more time to drive it back, and just put a little bit of logistics together on what it would look like and how many gallons of water we could apply to a fire.
I know we're at round table, Your Worship, and I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but we do have a fire chief here. And I don't know a lot about fire trucks, but I happened to be talking to the fire chief, I guess he is in Baldwin, and he was telling me all about this new truck they've got a couple of years back, and how fast they can fill it, and how fast they can unload it. Now, I'm not sure if that's the kind of truck we're looking at, because we're looking at a pumper tanker. Is theirs only a tanker?
Yes.
That's the difference with the volume and the quickness, I guess.
Yes. So theirs is actually like a vacuum sucker truck.
Yes, that's what
That's
he's
capable of pumping, yeah. That's so.
And I started looking for that. So we have some information, and we're going to get the difference with the other hall. What are we getting for that difference? What does it really mean on the boots firefighting?
Yeah.
How much water you can apply to a fire?
Yeah.
For me, the more trucks, the better.
Yeah.
Okay, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you cannot receive pumper tanker shuttle accreditation through the insurance company without having 2 tankers, first off. So we only have 1 pumper, 1 tanker. If we stick with that, there's no chance of receiving that accreditation.
Okay.
There's no chance of those people out in the outlying areas, including yourself, Mr. Duplessis, of receiving any kind of accreditation through the insurance company and having any chance of saving insurance money.
Okay, so a pumper tanker wouldn't account for accreditation then?
A pumper tanker?
Yes.
Yes.
Not one.
Yes, it would. No,
Yeah.
we need 2
Yeah.
to be able to shut it, so.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify, because I
Cynthia.
think, you know, just from what I've overheard, I think the assumption is that we currently have 2 pumper tankers, but we do not.
Yeah.
We have 1 pumper and 1
One
pumper
pumper,
tanker.
1 tanker.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay, but if we but we're going to buy one next year, and that'll give us 2 when we're done with that. Will it not?
Well, not if we have to get rid of the old one.
Yeah.
If we have to get rid of the old one, then we're down to 1 truck, 1 pumper tanker again.
We're the same as we are now.
Okay.
And that makes me so nervous when we have outlying places to fight fire in. That just does it for me.
So we have a pumper now and
Tanker.
a tanker. And if we bought a pumper tanker, we would just replace the tanker.
The people in the outlying
If we had no
areas-
space to put it.
People in the outlying areas deserve just as much protection as the people in town have.
Yeah.
And the more protection we can give them, the better off we're going to be. One of these days, there's going to be a fire that's not going to be to anybody's liking. And if we don't have the equipment to do this in a really good and fast and quick way with experienced firefighters, I don't know where the heck we're going with that. We need to have this. Councilor Ron, you had that?
Ken was
Oh,
trying
Ken,
for
sorry,
several
Ken.
times there.
I had to have my 2 cents in there.
What I'm interested in is saying.
You're not Ken?
Okay. Sorry.
It's good you include Mike. Mark had talked about it, the number of times you had to refill when you had the trailer fire.
Yes.
You probably have a report on that. I think you have to have reports on that. Could you include that with the information that Bill's asking?
Okay, in the report though, it doesn't tell you how many times we had to go back and refill.
Oh, that's what I thought he mentioned, Mark.
Yeah, he mentioned that out of memory because he was actually the pump operator at that time. So he kind of has the
That's what he
background
said.
knowledge on what, so it's not in our formal report. Now, if you want his documentation on it, that can be included.
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
Bill?
What I'm fundamentally asking is that we have some way to say if we had a fire hall with 3 bays and you had 2 pumper tankers in there, what we would probably put in long term. I'm guessing that's what you would like to see in there. If we had a 3-bay unit, 1 rescue.
Okay, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
interject just because I'm saying we need 2 pumper tankers. That's to shuttle water. We still need to pump at the scene all the time. So you need 3 trucks.
Yeah.
The pumper tankers will be shuttling the water, and you still need to pump at the scene to continuously pump water. You can't have just 2. You need the 3 trucks. That's, just want to clarify that.
And we're relying on Baldwin for the 3rd truck
We're
right now.
relying on Baldwin, which will not give us accreditation because it's not a department.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that. I'm just trying to say, we're gonna come up to a decision. We're gonna get some quotes in here with a fire hall with three bays with an option for a 4th. What we should do is have something that gives us a practical estimation of what that means when we actually go out and fight a fire in an area where we don't have fire hydrants and in the town. Just in some format that we can say what's the real impact, okay, when you turn around and try to set up a water relay of some sort. Yeah.
So our next step would be to get the accreditation, which in that case, and you were pretty close to your numbers, I believe, is being able to pump that 200 gallons a minute continuously from the time you arrive on scene and not be able to stop.
Yeah.
So.
But would we be able to do that in some of these locations? That's what I'm trying to get at. And so I would like to see a report if it was up to the rest of council showing us whether we could, what sort of volume of waters we would be able to put onto a fire in a scenario where we had 3 bays versus a scenario where we have 4.
Okay, the bays have nothing, it's the amount of trucks.
Yeah,
That's basically.
bays with trucks that what you would decide to put into.
Okay.
Okay? Because that's a long-term decision we're making.
Councillor Ron.
I have one more. When you're looking at accreditation because of pumper tankers, and we're looking at eliminating a truck that's, what year is that truck?
Our old pumper tanker is a 1993.
Because of the age of it, would that have a factor on the accreditation because of the reliability, they might say, because of the age? I'm not sure. Could we find that out and also have that in? Because, you know, saying that we're gonna keep it, hoping to get an accreditation, and they come along and they say, no, your truck's 25 years old. You don't qualify for an accreditation on a vehicle of that age. So I would like to see that in a report to make sure it even qualifies.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're looking at something that has no value.
But as far as just moving water, I mean,
No, but he was talking about accreditation. And if, because of the age, they may not accredit it because they'd say it wasn't reliable. I'm not sure.
But I think it would focus on what the job that it's going to do is. If it's just transporting water.
I realize that. It's a pumper tanker and they still look at it like they do our vehicle now.
Yeah.
For 20 years.
All right, let's move on.
Yes.
I want to go for lunch sooner or later.
It's free across the street, George.
Okay, corporate services meeting of June 5th, 2018 at 3 p.m. Regular meeting of council of June 12th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. The regular meeting of council is hereby adjourned. All in favor? Carried.